Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. North Korea flew more of the trash-carrying balloons on Wednesday night for the third day in a row. The regime also claimed its missile test on Wednesday was aimed at securing multiple warhead missile capability and was successful. South Korea, the U.S. and Japan held their first inaugural industry ministerial meeting on Wednesday and agreed to boost trilateral cooperation on supply chains, trade, and economic security. Bolivia has detained ex-army chief Juan Jose Zuniga, who had led an attempted coup that failed on Wednesday. President Luis Arce called for democracy to be respected. North Korea announced this morning that its ballistic missile launch on Wednesday was successful in testing its capability to develop missiles carrying multiple warheads. But South Korea's military says the North's explanation is merely deception. Peunji reports.
At around 5:30 a.m. on Wednesday morning, a white trail of smoke was seen in South Korea's capital area, apparently from a ballistic missile tested by North Korea. South Korea's military said the missile was fired from the Pyongyang area, but explained that the North had failed, as the missile exploded mid-air after traveling some 250 kilometers. The military said it appeared to have been the North's attempt to test launch a hypersonic missile, and added that it would conduct further analysis of the launch alongside the U.S. But North Korea on Thursday claimed that its missile launched the day before was a successful test aimed at developing missiles carrying multiple warheads. Its state-run media said the separated warheads were guided correctly to 3 coordinated targets, and said the latest test was to secure the capability to fire multiple warheads on a single ballistic missile. It added that the test was carried out within a 170 to 200 kilometer radius, using the first stage engine of an intermediate-range solid-fuel ballistic missile. In response, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the North's claims are exaggerated and that Wednesday's test launch was indeed a complete failure.
The missile launched by North Korea yesterday exploded mid-air in the early stage of flight. The North released some other information this morning, which I believe is merely deception and exaggeration.
This follows the North's launching of more trash-carrying balloons on Wednesday night for the third day in a row. This was the 7th balloon launch in the past month by the regime. Announcing that the North has again floated another round of waste-carrying balloons, South Korea's military advised the public to report the balloons if spotted and refrain from touching them. To better address these threats from North Korea, South Korea on Wednesday resumed live-fire drills on its western border islands for the first time in nearly 7 years. The country's Marine Corps fired around 290 artillery shells using its K-9 howitzers and Chunmo multiple rocket launcher systems. This was the first such exercise after the country's decision earlier this month to suspend the Inter-Korea military agreement, which bans hostile activities, including live-fire drills near the border. Peunji, Arirang News.
South Korea, the U.S. and Japan held their first industry ministers meeting on Wednesday in Washington, D.C. to seek ways to tighten trilateral cooperation on supply chains and economic security. Our Park Kwon-woo has the details.
Industry ministers of South Korea, the U.S. and Japan in their first trilateral meeting have agreed to strengthen their cooperation on supply chains and economic security. The meeting in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday local time was held between South Korea's Minister of Trade, Industry and Energy, An Deok-kun, and his U.S. and Japanese counterparts Gina Raimondo and Saito Ken. This was a follow-up meeting after the leaders of the 3 countries decided at Camp David last August to hold these ministerial meetings. In a joint statement on Wednesday, the 3 ministers said their shared intent was to promote the development of critical and emerging technologies and strengthen the security and resiliency of their economies through a trilateral mechanism. Saying their top priority is to strengthen resilience of supply chains in fields such as chips and batteries, they also said they aim to promote principles on resilient and reliable supply chains that contain rules of transparency, diversification, security, and sustainability. The ministers also agreed to improve their cooperation in advanced technologies like AI and core minerals. While some experts point out that the trilateral meeting was held to ask for Korea and Japan to join export control efforts against China, One professor spoke about Korea's stance.
In terms of severity, I think the Korea may have come up with different attitudes against Japan, because even though the Korean companies have taken over major market shares in semiconductors, when it comes to semiconductor producing equipment, Korean companies are taking up very small portions in the global market, less than about the 3%.
And as part of the ministerial meeting, the top industry officials agreed to meet annually at the ministerial level, along with regular working level meetings. 박건우, Arirang News.
17 victims from the fire this week at a battery factory here in South Korea have been identified, with still 6 remaining to be confirmed. And all the victims are presumed to have died from suffocation. Our An Sung-jin has the latest.
As the investigation into the deadly blaze at a lithium battery plant in Hwasong City, Gyeonggi-do Province continues, the identities of the victims are still being confirmed. 17 people have been identified so far, 12 Chinese nationals, 4 Koreans, and 1 from Laos, which leaves 6 remaining to be confirmed. The Gyeonggi Nambu Provincial Police, in coordination with the National Forensic Service, confirmed DNA results and notified the families, including the families of foreign nationals. DNA testing continues for the rest of the victims. As the National Forensic Service continues its autopsy, it has tentatively concluded that all of the victims suffocated. Search and seizure procedures have concluded after 7 hours at the lithium battery factory, which was the site of Monday's deadly fire, as well as at a related labor office. The police will begin analyzing evidence based on confiscated items such as documents on the lithium battery manufacturing process and safety management. This comes as part of the police and the Ministry of Employment and Labor's investigation to identify the cause of the fire and those responsible. The government will continue its investigation as it turns out that the fire department had already warned about the danger of a fire due to rapid expansion of combustion, 3 months before the tragedy. Additional search and seizure procedures may be needed, and the police will be summoning those charged with violation of industrial laws. However, it is expected to take time to determine the exact cause of the fire. The fire, which broke out on Monday after a series of explosions at a battery cell storage area, has left 23 dead and 8 injured. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Having the highest suicide rate among OECD member nations could be just one of the indicators that shows South Koreans are not happy. And the government has now placed looking after people's mental health as one of its top priorities. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
A series of policies dedicated to the mental health of citizens was announced on Wednesday after President Yoon Suk-yeol became the first South Korean leader to chair a meeting specifically dedicated to the mental well-being of the people. Hosting the first meeting of a committee he created last year, Yoon vowed a complete shift in the government's approach to mental health.
이제 국민의 이 마음을, 정신 건강을 돌보는 문제가 매우 중요한 국정 과제가 됐습니다. 우리가 아무리 세계 10위권 경제 강국, 글로벌 문화 강국으로 도약했다고 해도 국민이 한 사람 한 사람의 국민이 행복하다고 생각하지 않으면 아무 소용이 없는 것입니다.
The committee is tasked with focusing on 3 areas: prevention, treatment, and recovery. Regarding prevention, the government is set to start a project that will provide mental counseling to 1 million people by 2027, while providing free mental health checkups every 2 years for those in their 20s and 30s instead of once every 10 years. To promote rapid treatment, it will expand the current mental health emergency response teams nationwide. For recovery, the government will create rehabilitation centers focused on mental illnesses.
The detailed mental health policy plans announced during today's meeting are a roadmap created through surveys of patients and their families and input from medical, psychiatry, counseling, and welfare experts. No other government has ever done this before.
In the meantime, President Yoon said changing the public's perception of mental health is even more important than the policies themselves.
그렇지만 더 중요한 것은 정신 건강을 바라보는 우리 사회의 시선을 바꾸는 것입니다. 정신질환은 일반 질환과 마찬가지로 치료할 수 있고 치료하면 낫는다, 위험하지 않다는 인식이 우리 사회에 뿌리 내리도록 해야 됩니다.
An official at the presidential office said the committee will have subcommittees, and one of them will consist of marketing and PR experts to create campaigns on breaking down the barriers of public perception toward mental health. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
An attempted coup in Bolivia on Wednesday, where the country's armed forces surrounded key government buildings in the country's capital, La Paz, ended with the soldiers withdrawing under the command of a newly appointed army chief, José Wilson Sanchez. The event also saw condemnation from regional and international communities. Yoon reports.
On Wednesday, an attempted coup by Bolivia's armed forces came to an end, with the former military leader behind the rebellion arrested. Earlier in the day, soldiers had surrounded government buildings in La Paz before armored vehicles charged the doors of the presidential palace. Leading the coup was former military commander General Juan José Zuniga, who had been stripped of his position on Monday. Before entering the palace, Zuniga told reporters that 3 army chiefs had come together to take action due to an economic crisis in the country, saying that he had public support. He added that he was trying to restore democracy and free political prisoners. Hundreds of President Luis Arce's supporters gathered in the square outside the palace, as Zuniga was confronted by Arce, who ordered the soldiers to withdraw. As the police took control of the plaza, Bolivian authorities arrested Zuniga. Inside the presidential palace, President Arce appointed new heads of the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Replacing Zuniga is José Wilson Sanchez, who ordered all mobilized armed forces to return to base. In a speech after the attempted coup, Arce said the military had stained the uniform and the Bolivian constitution through its actions.
Without a doubt, this has been an atypical day for a country that wants democracy. Today we are living through an attempted coup by members of the military who are staining the uniform and attempting against the constitution. But we also count on members of the military that know that our constitution and respect for the current laws are most important.
Bolivia's public prosecutor's office said a criminal investigation would be carried out against Zuniga and those involved in the attempted coup, as regional leaders and international organizations expressed support for Bolivia's democracy. Wednesday's attempted coup comes amid brewing tensions caused by political conflict and economic hardship in Bolivia ahead of the presidential elections in 2025. Yoon, Arirang News.
Incumbent U.S. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are facing off against each other once again in their presidential debate on Thursday. Our Lee Seung-jae tells us what to expect.
The date is finally set for the long-anticipated TV debate between the incumbent U.S. President Joe Biden and his opponent and former President Donald Trump. The first TV debate for the 2024 presidential election, which will be moderated by CNN anchors Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, is set to take place on June 27th in Atlanta, the capital of the key battleground state of Georgia. The showdown between the two rivals will last for 90 minutes, with the candidates' roles reversed from their last debate 4 years ago. At the time, Trump was the incumbent, defending against Biden's criticism of his mishandling of state affairs. Now it's Biden who will have to defend against a barrage from Trump come Thursday. It's also the first time that a former and incumbent president has faced off as presidential candidates in a televised debate since 1956. The TV debate is also taking place before the Republican National Convention in July and the Democratic National Convention in August, where the two parties' presidential candidates are officially nominated. National opinion polls show that the two are neck and neck within the margin of error, with Trump having a slight lead in battleground states. Experts believe that the televised debate will have a significant impact on swing voters. Some of the key issues to be discussed on the day will be U.S. migrant problems, high inflation, abortion, the Ukraine war, and the Israel-Hamas armed conflict. Trump is expected to fiercely criticize the Biden administration's failure to control illegal immigration. Biden, on the other hand, is expected to raise Trump's legal issues and his take on abortion, which could influence female voters. With Biden and Trump being the two oldest presidential candidates in history, pundits say the outcome of the debate will ultimately depend on which candidate will be able to demonstrate more leadership and vitality. 이승재, Arirang News.
Over in Cebu, UN Tourism initiated a Gastronomy Tourism Forum for the Asia-Pacific region. The talks centered on how this emerging trend can help boost local economies and, at the same time, protect cultural heritages, the topic that South Korea also takes a great interest in. Lee Soo-jin reports.
There's a growing trend in tourism where it's less about what you see and more about what's on the menu. To bring experts from all of the world together to discuss this, the first UN Tourism Regional Forum on Gastronomy Tourism for Asia and the Pacific kicked off on Wednesday in Cebu.
Everything is tourism, and that's why it's very important day to day. Big part of economy in tourism, it depends on agriculture and gastronomy tourism.
Gastronomy tourism, or culinary tourism, is a type of travel where the main focus is experiencing a destination's local food and drink. And its market is projected to grow in value from $1.1 trillion in 2023 to a whopping $6.2 trillion in 2033. In light of this, the forum highlighted the wide-reaching economic impact gastronomy tourism has on a country, which includes diversifying income sources for local producers and creating jobs. This greater demand for local cuisine is also a way for a country to preserve its cultural heritage. And a large part of this market is expected to be based in the Asia-Pacific region, which is also why UN Tourism decided to hold a regional forum here in the Philippines.
Well, I think there is a very strong point on street food. I think when you think about Asia, it's a huge diversity. And also I think there is already a strong brand because a lot of the cuisines are very well known.
Tourism officials from various areas of the Asia-Pacific region, such as South Korea, Japan, and Hong Kong, were also in attendance to share their own experiences and learn about other countries' practices.
I personally believe that South Korea's gastronomy tourism has a huge impact on the world's gastronomy tourism. Jeju especially is receiving a lot of attention for its seafood and agricultural products from its UNESCO-approved fields.
He added that moving forward, based on what was discussed in this forum, the Jeju Tourism Organization also plans to raise awareness of Jeju's local cuisine in a way that is both inclusive and diverse.
With the forum successfully drawing more than 800 people from more than 30 different countries, it's expected to not just build anticipation for the World Forum happening later this year, but also be the first of many to be held for the Asia-Pacific region. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News, Cebu.
We are less than a month away from the start of the Paris Olympics, and Team Korea is working hard to make sure athletes are ready to push for medals. Our Choi Soo-hyung visited their training center.
South Korea's athletes' faces were filled with excitement and anticipation. In the upcoming 2024 Paris Olympics this summer, around 10,500 athletes from 206 countries will compete in 32 sports. Team Korea will comprise slightly over 140 athletes to participate in 21 sports, its smallest delegation since the 50 at the 1976 Montreal Olympics. At the recent 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympics 3 years ago, South Korea won a total of 20 medals, including 6 gold, 4 silver, and 10 bronze, finishing in the top 15 overall rankings. Here at the National Training Center in Jincheon, Chungcheongbuk-do Province, Team Korea is training hard in the final preparations for the Olympics before heading to Paris with the goal of winning 5 gold medals and securing a place in the top 15 overall rankings. In archery, Korea claimed 4 gold medals in Tokyo and expect to get good result in Paris.
In Tokyo, there were no spectators due to COVID-19. But the Paris Olympics are expected to be filled with many fans. We are very excited and have been preparing a lot, so we ask for strong support. My goal is to win a gold medal in the men's team event.
Swimmer Hwang Sonu, who won 6 medals, including 2 golds at the 2023 Asian Games in Hangzhou, showed his confidence.
Over the past 3 years, we have honed our skills and gained valuable experience, and we are determined to show the country excellent performances.
Weightlifter Park Hae-jung aims for a medal in the discipline for Team Korea for the first time in 16 years since the 2008 Beijing Olympics.
Since it's my first Olympics, I feel very nervous, but I'm also eager to go to Paris quickly. Although my goal is not necessarily a gold medal, I am working hard with my coach to ensure I at least make it into the medal podium.
Badminton star An Se-young also said that she will deliver her best performance to the nation in Paris.
Earlier this year, I was constantly worried and had a tough time due to injuries. However, now that I am focusing on the Olympics, my condition has improved significantly. I can prepare well. I believe I can achieve good results.
Meanwhile, following concerns about the extreme heat in Paris at the end of July, the Korean Sport and Olympic Committee has pledged to support the athletes in every way, including providing cooling jackets to ensure they can do their best. Regardless of the color or number of medals, the Paris Summer Olympics, which will bring great joy and excitement to the nation, will begin its 17-day journey on July 26. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News, Sincheon.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. In Kenya, the country's President William Ruto announced on Wednesday that he will not sign a controversial finance bill following mass protests across the country that have left at least 23 people dead. In a televised address Wednesday, Ruto confirmed that he had decided not to sign the 2024 finance bill as the people had spoken. This comes ahead of the 1 million people march planned for Thursday, which the Kenyan protesters say will still take place despite Ruto scrapping the bill. The budget bill was passed by Parliament on Tuesday, despite widespread opposition to tax increases it included. Parliament building were set alight on the same day, while there were also violent clashes between the protesters and the police nationwide. American journalist Evan Gershkovich, who is the first U.S. reporter to be arrested on espionage charges in Russia since the Cold War, went on trial on Wednesday in Yekaterinburg, some 15 months after first being locked up in a Moscow jail. The Wall Street Journal reporter was seen stood in a metal and glass cage in a Russian courtroom, with his head shaven, smiling to the cameras before the trial was held behind closed doors. Russian prosecutors claim that Gershkovich was collecting classified information about a Yekaterinburg-based Russian tank manufacturer on behalf of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal, and the U.S. government strongly rejected the charge, with the White House saying that Russia is using the journalists as a bargaining chip. Gershkovich faces up to 20 years in prison if convicted. As sweltering temperatures in Washington, D.C. rose to some 37 degrees Celsius over the past few days, a wax statue of Abraham Lincoln partially melted, causing its head to fall off. The 1.8-meter-high wax statue had been placed outside Garrison Elementary School, which is on the site of Camp Barker, a Civil War-era refugee camp. The statue, which is also a functioning candle, was part of the Wax Monument series by Virginia-based artist Sandy Williams IV, which creates wax replicas of popular public monuments and cultural icons. The head from the wax sculpture is now under repair. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Heavy monsoon rain is pounding down on Jeju, dropping 30 millimeters an hour, with a preliminary rain advisory being issued. And further south, we'll see heavier showers. Until Friday morning, most of Jeju could see up to 100 millimeters of heavy monsoon rain with strong winds. And the rest of southern provinces could see 5 to 60 millimeters. Meanwhile, sun safety is essential for central parts of the country today. UV rays will hike to very high during the day under burning sunshine in central regions, with temperatures going up as high as yesterday. So Seoul and Chuncheon will go up to 32 degrees Celsius this afternoon, but southern parts will have 1 to 7 degrees lower daytime highs, with that monsoon showers going up to 28 degrees over in Gwangju, Busan and Jeju at 25 degrees. But tomorrow looks to be even hotter in the capital, while monsoon season starts this weekend in central regions. Meanwhile, morning temperatures will also get warmer. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have at this hour. Arirang News will be back at 2 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.